because this is not Movie Battleground. Hello, everybody. Nobody's watching live now, so this part doesn't actually matter. But my name is Aaron Knoll. If I sound like shit, it's because I feel like shit, but I wanted to do it, so we're here. Welcome to the first episode of what I've decided to call Battleground Casual. Now, this is because this channel, we have a couple different things on here, but Movie Battleground is the mainstay show, and that is about debate discussion. And myself and my fellow cohort, the man who actually owns the channel, Mr. Matt Beer, we've been discussing for a long time about bringing back some sort of discussion show to the channel, because we used to have one that we enjoyed doing for a time, but scheduling became an issue, and there were other personal behind the scenes issues that became an issue for us. And eventually we kind of settled on a way to sort of go about this. And I would figure the reason the show's branding is tied into Movie Battleground because it's the channel. But also B, I kind of see this as almost the antithesis of it, because whereas Battleground is highly structured debate, it's almost competitive speaking, here we want to be laid back. We want to just discuss what the topic is and sort of have some more fun with it. So Matt, for the first time in a while since you've been here, how are you feeling?
Feeling pretty good, a little tired, with a lot of stuff going on, just watching a lot of movies. I've seen 16 movies this year. So, but yeah, it's been pretty good.
Feel like an absolutely. Old man. And so,
yep.
For anyone who's wondering how this will sort of work and like where the tie-in is, usually the way that it'll work is the guest panel will be made up of myself or Matt, if we're available, obviously. And then it'll be a mix of the production team for Movie Battleground, those who help host and write here and there and help out behind the scenes. But the guests will also be made up of people who are involved in the matches that have uploaded that week, so we can sort of tie it in and have some sense of discussion there. Now, our first match for the show did go up this week. It went up yesterday, the first match of the new season between Papa West and Zach Shelton. Go check it out if you have not yet. But because this was sort of a last-minute affair, we chose not to go that direction, and so instead we've invited a couple of people on who maybe have some interest or some thoughts on the main discussion topic for tonight. So we have another man who has not been on the channel in a while, but I'm glad to have him back, Mr. JB3. Sir, welcome back. I know that you yourself just brought back your own side endeavor, so congratulations on that return.
Hey, thanks. I appreciate it. No, I haven't been on here in a while, but it's going to be a good time. The topic that we're going to talk about, I actually have some interest in. I have some opinions, so I'm glad I get to talk about them.
And if there is a man who knows anything about anything, it's the guy who will literally write something for everything. We also have Malcolm Lay here. You are an expert on everything, foremost so Middle Earth, you did make them. But aside from that, how are you feeling tonight?
I'm feeling pretty good, and you come out to talk about this.
Absolutely. We also have our TM Geek head, Kevin Poss, who will be joining us in just a little bit. He is finishing up a screening of the movie Parasite, which his wife had not seen until tonight. So that is more important, because that's a great film. Check that out if you haven't. Although, at this point, maybe wait till we're done to start watching that.
Yeah. Excuse you, Aaron.
Sorry. That may happen.
No, you're good. You're
good. So let's go ahead and jump into it. So earlier this week, a shit ton was put out about everything that is coming out in the DCU. And this would have been said last year. There was that huge debacle that began when basically within the span of a few weeks, Black Adam came out, Henry Cavill was in it, and there was a huge oh my god, they had him do a PR video, The Rock was doing PR videos, and it was this whole thing. And then Walter Hamada exited DC early. He was supposed to exit at the end of the year. Instead, he exited basically after Black Adam opened. And then more and more reports started coming out about how Henry Cavill ended up in the film, and it wasn't exactly a PR move that Walter Hamada supported, hence why he left the studio. early. Then after discussions with a lot of different people in Hollywood, James Gunn and Peter Safran were brought in to take over as the creative heads of what is now known as DC Studios. DCU, DC Universe is the name of the franchise. And so I'll turn it over to you, Matt. What are your thoughts on sort of leading up to this, sort of the prelude of everything that happened at the end of last year with DC?
Obviously it seemed like a mess for a bit because it's like, oh, look, Henry Cavill, he's back as Superman. Just kidding. He's not going to be back as Superman. And it was just like, who's going to run this thing? So they were talking about, we're going to have new people running it. And there was rumors that I think there's a younger producer or whatever. He's been working in Hollywood for a bit, but compared to a lot of producers, he's younger. And
Yes,
there was talks about...
I think the one you're thinking of was Dan Lin, who is
yes, Dan
his
Lin.
biggest claims to fame are he was a producer on the It films. He was one of the producers alongside Lord and Miller behind the Lego Movie series, and he's also one of the lead producers on the upcoming Avatar series at Netflix.
Yeah, so like I remember hearing him. It was rumored he was going to be running DC. So I was like, okay, that could be interesting. Not like a super well-known guy with to like a lot of people, but hey, he could be good. Turned out it wasn't gonna be him. James Gunn, Peter Safran. That really surprised me that James Gunn was brought in to like actually run DC. I figured he would have involvement, but it still really surprised me that they said, hey, we want you not only to make a couple movies for us, we want you to run this thing with another guy that has experience producing movies. And I thought that was really smart, not just to let James Gunn be Kevin Feige, but have him have a business partner where, you have James Gunn, more of the creative, knows a lot about comic books. You got him, and then you got another guy that's more of the business. And I think that was a good move, personally. If you're not just going to get one guy that can do both, you might as well get two people that are really strong in each category. So I thought it was a good move. I know some people aren't happy, but it's like a very small minority, I think, that aren't happy. That just won't
absolutely.
let
Malcolm
some
or
movies go.
Whoever wants to take it first, and then the other can go. What were your guys' thoughts on sort of, again, everything leading up to this announcement a couple days ago?
Yeah, I mean, I think James Gunn reiterated in the announcement that like the whole Henry Cavill thing was a botched thing from the beginning because there wasn't supposed to be videos released about it. Or I think someone said something about that, and you were like, I don't think anyone really knows what happened there. It's like, and yeah, I mean, because I know there for the longest time, there was rumors that Greg Berlanti was being looked at to helm DC Studios, which has success to the Arrowverse. So, like he would have been a good choice. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those ones like it is what it is. I mean, and James Gunn like has experience working with Feige, and I think he knows what not to do and what to do. So,
yeah, I think that it was a surprise to me because there's a lot. Okay, so first off, there's a lot of things that could have changed people's minds. I think the success or lack of Black Adam played a role into it as well. I think personally, because let's say that movie was successful. Let's say that it was really, really, really good and it did good in the box office with the Henry Cavill scene at the end. Spoilers, I mean, if it matters now. When that happened, people were really excited about that. That was almost like, hey, don't even watch the movie, watch the end credit scene. I think that if the movie was successful, maybe that could have changed some minds, but it wasn't. And then it's like, okay, well, I'm taking over now, and then everything else happened,
Yeah, it was certainly a weird situation leading up to it. And specifically, I'll throw out there before we move on. Does anyone have any thoughts specifically around the Henry Cavill of it? Because I know when you look at the fan response on the internet, a lot of the negativity around all the changes has been very frankly centered on the recasting of Henry Cavill. Which is one of those things for me where it's like, I get it, because even though he's in movies that I don't like the majority of, I do think he was good in the role. But I think
big time.
more than some of the other characters, he needed to be recast because he is the face of the universe that previously existed. And though it sucks, I think it is something that needed to be done. And I'd be saying this in most instances. Like, if let's say halfway through phase 2, the MCU had to do something similar and they had to do a restart before they ever fully got into it, and certain elements may have been kept, but I would totally have been for recasting the likes of RDJ or Chris Evans, because they are such the face of that universe that they will always be defined by those films, and it sucks, but that is what it is. So I think this is unfortunately, a similar situation. I think just as how if you would have to reboot the MCU early on, Renner could have continued playing Hawkeye and nobody would have batted an eye. I think you could keep Zach Levi or Joel Maridueña, the lead of Blue Beetle, around, and no one's really going to bat an eye. But if you keep Henry Cavill around, that draws a connection to what came before. Does anyone else have any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those ones. Oh.
No, you're.
Go ahead, JB. There.
I was going to say it's the options available too. I mean, you're talking about they're creating a world that has multiple worlds and else worlds and different universes and in the multiverse and all the different things. There's so many options available to keep him in the show and have him pass the torch of some type to a new, younger version. But to just see the reception that he got after returning, and then to just cut out, with nothing else at all to show for it, like especially with the lineup coming up, like they have the schedule and they have the opportunity to do things like have a pass the torch moment, besides just saying no, we don't want him at all, because it's like everyone's excited for James Gunn. Sure, they're gonna be good movies, I think, right? Most of them, they should be, if they trust him. But like, that's not a good move to make in the beginning, I don't think.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Anyone else before I move on?
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, let's face it, like for the most part, the DCU had fumbled the ball on Henry Cavill from the get-go. Like, they didn't give him a Man of Steel 2's list. Like, and since Justice League, he was barely used. I mean, I know mostly it was because of his schedule and that, but like, wouldn't even try to get him in for a quick cameo for Shazam. They had to get a stand-in in his suit, so they really fumbled the ball on Cavill from the get-go.
So for me, my whole thing was, if you're going to recast Henry Cavill, it sucks because I love Henry Cavill as Superman, but I'm okay with it if you completely reboot the DC universe, like recast everybody. I would have been cool with it, because I think that's what should have been done anyway. Just clean slate, move Flash to December, move Aquaman to the summer, because they would both be ready for the summer. Just swap it, let Flash be the final movie, and then start your new universe. Maybe move Blue Beetle if there isn't really any connection with this universe, and just move it back a little bit so you can have it be a part of this universe. But with how they handled it and what they're doing, I don't like that they're getting rid of Henry Cavill, because, Malcolm said and others have said, it just really feels like he hasn't gotten a fair opportunity. He did Man of Steel, and then it's like, oh, we'll put you in Batman v Superman. I got a lot of, hey, okay, we're basically not going to have you in it until Justice League. That's pretty much it. We didn't really get to see him kind of take that next step of kind of being the Superman a lot of people, expected to see when Man of Steel came out. And I believe that's what they were going to do with Henry Cavill, where after Justice League, we're going to see more of that, like, Boy Scout, but more modern type of Superman. So again, if they would have just rebooted the universe, I'm fine with it. But just how they're doing it, I don't really like that they decided not to move forward with Henry Cavill. Ben Affleck, I understand he's like 50, but Henry Cavill, he could play Superman for another 10, 15 years. and the dog opened the door. So
The dog did open the door.
yeah,
I get both
I
sides
love
of it.
it.
I do. I completely get where people are coming from. And I get why there is an upset around Henry Cavill's firing. And I'm going to say the unpopular thing. If we're going to blame someone, I think there are two people specifically we can blame for Henry Cavill's kind of career DC ending up the way that it did. I think we need to blame Zack Snyder, and we need to blame Dwayne Johnson. Now, here's the thing. The reason I say Zack Snyder is because no matter what your opinion is of the quality of those films, it was Zack Snyder who decided that after one Superman film, we should go into the death and rebirth of Superman right at the jump of our universe, which means you take away the immediacy of that Man of Steel 2, you do Batman v Superman, and then it leads into a Justice League film where for 2/3 of the film, he's not a relevant character. And then for another 10% of that film, he's not himself. Because when he comes back, there's the whole, even in the Zack Snyder's version, there's the whole, like, he has to sort of find himself thing before, and by then you're in the final battle. So he is the one that archetyped and designed a universe where that character never really got to be that character outside of Man of Steel. So I would say that retroactively, even though I'm sure there's the argument that a lot of people would make of, well, if you let him finish his vision, sure. But at the end of the day, things went the way they did. None of those movies made as much money as they should have, given, like, it's a Superman movie, and it went the way it went. The other reason that I blame Dwayne Johnson is because and I'm not going to go too deep into it, but if you haven't looked into the behind the scenes of what happened with Henry Cavill's cameo, Johnson tried multiple times to get it cleared through Walter Hamada, who at the time was the head of DC Studios. And Hamada said no because he knew that when he stepped out, they were going to bring in new creatives who would want to have the chance to take this in their own direction. And so he didn't want to commit publicly to bringing Henry Cavill back because he didn't know that if the people who followed would want to. Maybe they would want to start their own clean slate with their own Superman. I think a lot of people owe Walter Hamada an apology because clearly that guy was a visionary. Not in all cases. He had his own fuck-ups, but in this instance, he was right. And so Dwayne Johnson had his producing partner, Hiram Garcia, go over Hamada's head and take it straight to Michael DeLuca, who's a producer that had been named. At the time, he was temporary, but I believe now he is one of the permanent heads of Warner Brothers Discovery under Zaslav, and pitched the idea to DeLuca as essentially a box office thing. And that is what made DeLuca override Hamada and say, put it in the movie because we can sell it and help make money. Which he's not wrong. I'd say that movie did make extra money because of the Cavill cameo. But there was no part of it that was ever genuine from either Hamada as a producer because he didn't want it in the first place, or The Rock as a producer because he had no real say over the future of DC. And so I think The Rock, using his star power and his ability to try and sell things to put him in the film to make him look better, has fucked with Cavill inadvertently, because now you have a whole thing around it that's inevitably going to bring up backlash when Gunn decides, I don't know if I'm moving forward with this. You know what I mean? And even as Gunn said, Cavill wasn't fired because he had no contract in place. His contract with DC had lapsed years ago. He never signed a new deal. So he couldn't be fired when he didn't technically have a job. And it sucks. Like, that's a real technicality. It sucks. And I feel bad for Cavill because he was a good Superman. But it's one of those things where sometimes Hollywood systems, you know?
Yeah, I mean, last thing I will say this is I don't think we need to talk about this at ages, but and I'm almost certain that they put Cavill in there to think that, well, we know no one really cares about Blacken because it's been in the roots for ages, so we'll see if we can bump up sales to get people who may be planning on only seeing on streaming to go to the cinemas, which clearly that didn't work. It might have been given them a little bit of money, but it wasn't enough to get them over the. But the other thing is, I think there's a lot of outcries like, but he got richer for this. Like, well, no, like he clearly wanted a reason to quit leave the show The Witcher for his own other reasons. Because I think
Yeah,
he did,
no.
it's like so he did that all on his own. So
Right. Well, for me, real quick, I'll just toss this in because I do understand, blaming Snyder for part of it because, the death of Superman story should have been a little later down the road, just like I think Snyder had like a, 5-film story arc that he wanted to do where he had Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and then the Justice League movies. But I think you got to blame Warner Brothers, the people that were running Warner Brothers, because not only did they allow him to do that, but anytime there was bad reception for any of the movies, it's like they pivot. They're like, oh, we can't do that now. Let's change this up. Oh, we can't do that. Let's change this. Oh, they didn't like that. Change it. And it's like they weren't like a Kevin Feige where Kevin Feige stayed course. Like he didn't adjust. Maybe he added some characters like Spider-Man later on, but his storyline never changed. He never
Right.
let people's opinions dictate what he's going to do. Warner Brothers, they were like, oh, they didn't like that. Let's change it. Just like Lucasfilm with, after Last Jedi. Oh, they didn't like that. Let's change this. Let's do all this. So it's like, yeah, I think Snyder, sure, he deserves some to blame, but I think at the end of the day, you got to blame Warner Brothers because, they didn't step in when they needed to tell Snyder, hey, maybe not do all this stuff in one movie, maybe spread it out a little bit. And then also just for pivoting every single time somebody had an issue with a decision they made with a movie.
And I guess that speaks to I guess I'll make this the final point before I'll move us on. That speaks to oh my god, what was I gonna say? The fact that Snyder, though he was the creative head, obviously, he was just a director and not a producer, which is the difference between
excuse you. Say, I know he produced like Wonder Woman, but he wasn't like at the level,
right? Like he was
some of the other people.
Producer, but he's not a producer in the way that Kevin Feige is.
Yeah.
And so he didn't have that layer of protection where he could go to the studio and fight it. He did have to listen. So I'll give you that. I'll give you that as well. So let's go ahead then. Excuse me, and we'll move into what is actually on the table, what still exists. So before we get to the new DC universe, we have to talk about the remainders of the DCEU because it does still exist. We have 4 films, a whole year's worth of projects. Shazam! Fury of the Gods, The Flash, Blue Beetle, and Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, all of which are set to release. Shazam comes out in just a few weeks in March. The Flash is June 16th, Blue Beetle August 18th, and Aquaman is our Christmas present on December 25th. And in his announcement, at least the public one, and he talked a bit more in like the press release that was given to the reporters that were there. Gunn, they didn't really go into how these films were going to affect the future going forward, which makes a lot of sense. But I think one of the biggest questions people has is we've already seen that they're going to retain some of what was kept over, and they're being picky and choosy about what stays and what goes. But I think the question is, do any of these films matter? Because we know Cavill's out. We more than likely know that Affleck is out of his own accord, because even he said when he came back and shot the small role in Flash that it would be the final thing that he would do. It was more to make an exit for the character than anything else. But we don't know. We know Patty Jenkins is out, but we don't know if Gal Gadot's out. We do know that Ray Fisher's out, unfortunately for him, and everything that happened there, of course. But we know that he's not coming back. But you have, even in this year alone, you have Zach Levi, you have Ezra Miller, you have Xolo Maridueña, who'll be making his debut as Blue Beetle this year, and you have Jason Momoa, all of whom are leading DC heroes who have films, but their futures aren't really known. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over. JB3, I'll go to you first, just because you didn't speak in that last end section. What's up?
I just have a question.
Yeah.
It just dawned on me. So I can't. I'm not that knowledgeable, but peace. Let's talk about just. I got a question about Peacemaker.
Okay,
So who did Peacemaker? Did James Gunn do that
James Gunn.
movie? That's
Mhm.
what I thought. So interesting. Do you know the two Justice League actors that cameoed at the in the last episode of season 1?
As
Yeah.
Ezra Miller and Jason Momoa.
That's interesting because those are the two of the movies that are left, and
Yep.
I wonder
Yeah,
if
and of course with Ezra Miller, there was a whole nother bank vault of things of
yeah,
like,
yeah,
do you want to
which
keep that around?
and it seems like they are, which I
So
think
yeah, so I'll
personally.
turn it over to you first. First off, what are your thoughts on these films in general? Is there any of the individual films that you're excited for? And then what do you think of these films' futures in DC? Do they get to be kept after the reset? Because the way that Gunn phrased it in the video, and the only reason I didn't think to play the video is copyright is a bitch. And as we've seen on this channel, DC will go after you if you play their shit live on air.
Yeah.
Yeah, that happened once. They
Yeah, they
shut down a
blocked the
stream
whole.
midstream, and then once the video stopped playing, it went live again. Like they will stop you. But in his video, Gunn seems to sort of indicate that the Flash will do sort of a reset thing, like a lot of people think it
Right.
will, and even reference the fact that Blue Beetle and Aquaman are set after the fact of the Flash. So, could just kind of, what are your thoughts overall first, and then Malcolm, jump in after.
So when it comes to my excitement for the films, I'm not that excited for Shazam. I'm a kind of am, but the Flash is the reason. I'm really excited for the Flash, and it's because of, first off, I'm just a huge fan in general, whether it be the TV show, just the character itself, and everything that can happen with the character. But with the movie, I thought that at first they were setting some good things up. You can use the Flash to connect so many things in films together. So what I'm hoping for and what I'm so excited for is because you would think, oh, like Matt said, move the Flash to December, make that the end so you could just change everything. There's a possibility, I don't know, what if the two things I'll say is, one, what if they do the Flash and something happens? Like, I know that these were getting like there's a lot of things that I was already done with these films before James Gunn, but if you would think, okay, can you connect them? And I think that there's a possibility that they could go on a journey from the Flash through Blue Beetle, through Aquaman, the Lost Kingdom, to do like a trilogy type reset. That would be kind of cool. And the second thing is there's the controversial stuff with Ezra Miller. They possibly could, and I know there's a lot of variables to consider, but as a fan, what I wouldn't mind seeing is they could just Grant Gustin. Like it's been mentioned before. Like he's the Flash. You know, like they can incorporate that, which the last season is starting in a couple days, and it's gonna be ending sometime before the movie comes out. So I don't know. That I'm excited just for the Flash and the possibility surrounding everything around it.
Yeah, fair enough. And I'll turn it over to Matt next. But another thing I noticed while I was looking at just the different notes that I have here on the different films, weirdly enough, because a lot of people have talked about James Gunn and his connection to things that are being kept around. So before Peter Safran became the head of DC Studios, he was a producer with DC. He did work with them on films. In fact, both Aquaman and Shazam are his franchises. He's a producer on both those films. And he's also a producer on Blue Beetle. The Flash is the only film coming out this year that he did not actively produce. So weirdly enough, again, everyone's talking about Gunn and what his ties could keep, but Safran could also have a play there in terms of keeping the things that he's worked on. So Matt, I'll turn it over to you.
obviously I'm pretty excited for the Flash. It's gonna be weird to watch it knowing everything that Ezra Miller did and rooting for Ezra Miller in the movie. It's just gonna be a little weird. But they're getting help, which is obviously good. I do think you have to move on from Ezra. Like, best of luck. Hope you get well. I look, if you're gonna replace Henry Cavill, replace Ezra Miller. Like, I think they're gonna replace Ezra. I don't know if I would go with Grant Gustin just because he's been the Flash for like 9 years, and I kind of want to see him, do some other stuff. I wouldn't hate it if he was the Flash. I kind of want him to have an opportunity to, do some other things, because eventually, if you play, whatever character for so long, it's eventually going to start it's not going to be fun for you. You're not really going to enjoy it as much. It would be a different version of the Flash, because
Right.
I don't
Well, what
think
if it
they would
wasn't?
do that. I just don't, just based on how many people watch the show compared to like a lot of the movies, I don't think having him play the same version is going to really affect the box office in a good or
Yeah.
bad way. I think they would
That makes
just
sense.
prefer to, do something else, because, like, if you have the same Flash, it's like, well, are you going to bring in Stephen Amell as Arrow? Are you going to bring in, all these other people from the DC shows in
It
this
would be
stuff? And
expected for sure. You're right.
I think
It
that's
would
what a
be
lot of people
expected.
think. So I think if he came back, it would have to be a different version. I
I
want him
feel
to do
like
something else for his career. And maybe when they do Crisis, he can come back and Ezra can come back, because I'm sure Ezra will be in a much better place, and a lot of people forget everything that happened, like, throwing a woman to the ground and breaking, into somebody's room, saying, hey, if you don't give me all your pills and stuff, I'm going to put you in the ground, and all this stuff. I'm sure people forget about that stuff.
You're right. Hopefully.
I was going to say,
do you think Grant? Hold up. I'm sorry, real quick. Do you
No,
think
you're-
Grant will be in the movie?
I think
No.
Like, at least a cameo.
unfortunately.
At least a cameo.
I think
Because
he
Ezra
will
was
be
in the show.
for just because of the show. I think it wouldn't surprise me if they take that scene, but almost on the opposite side, to
Right.
where when that happened in the Crisis show, maybe that also happens in the Flash movie. I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me if he was in it, though, because we're already going to get multiple Flashes and multiple Batman and stuff.
I think, and I'll turn it over to Malcolm after this as well, because I believe you've seen some of the CW stuff as well, so you can comment on that part of it, right?
Yeah.
So I would say, because I thought about this as you guys were talking about it. I feel like if you were to bring, because I have not seen much of the CW stuff myself, but I have seen bits and pieces of it, and the little bits that I've seen, I've always thought Grant Gustin was a good performer in like the scenes and stuff that I've seen. I feel like bringing him in opens up the same can of worms that we already have with who are we keeping, who are we getting rid of? Because when you made that comment of like, if we keep him, do we bring back Stephen Amell? Because I'm sure, and we'll get into it in just a moment, because that plays into part of the announcement. There's a lot of great actors on the CW who are in those roles who are not keeping those roles for reasons that are beyond them. And so I feel like if you open up that wormhole and drag some in, but not others, again, now you're going down a rabbit hole of like, well, why did they get kept and why didn't they get kept and what's the politics here? And, and I mean, I don't need more assumption articles on how, Grant Gustin's an asshole or something, and that's why he didn't, or whoever, you know what I mean? Like, there's that article that came out where somebody tried to be like, Henry Cavill's actually an asshole, and that's why he lost all these jobs. And it's like, no, that's not true, but
he's just a nerd.
Thanks for trying. Malcolm, what are your thoughts before we move
on? I mean, first of all, I like the Flash in there. It's I just don't want to see Grant. I like Grant Gustin. I just think at this point he's done with the Flash. Like, I think he's happy being the Flash on the show, but I think it's one of those ones he doesn't want to be Flash for the rest of his life. And so
great paycheck though.
Oh yeah. And I mean, I think it's just one of those things because, like, look at Daniel Radcliffe. Every time he gets a new role, like everyone like, oh, yes, that kid from Harry Potter, or like Rob Pattinson, that's that kid from Twilight. Like they've always pigeonholed to the roles they play for the longest time. So, moving on, I think that's why I actually don't hate the fact that James Gunn wants to do more of a soft reboot than a hard reset, because because I think he has said like there was doors open for Gal and all that to return, but there's no confirmation of them returning, which is a good thing, because I know there's rumors that maybe Momoa might come back as Lobo or something like that. But but the movies that are coming out this year, like Shazam and Aquaman, those are probably the two that are really loosely sort of in the DCU as it was. Like they appeared in the Justice League movies, but like they have the most barest or minimum references to like Bruce Wayne, Batman, and all that. So it makes sense that they realistically could continue on to the move out them being any confusion. And the Blue Beetle, like this is the first time we've seen him, and I'll get more into that when we get to actually talk about announcements, because he's tied to one of the new announcements as it is. And I mean the Flash movie is one of those ones, like I don't know what their plan is, but I think it's just a case of they want to get Aquaman 2 done because it's been sitting in production for the longest time. Like, well, they've both got
an entire court case happened, and this movie has still been in post-production.
Yeah, I mean, it's as well as it's like, yes, you've got problematic people in it. Yes, we're going to release it because we want to at least try and get some money out of these people if we aren't going to stop them. So,
right.
Absolutely. So before we move on, JB3 does have to check out for a little bit. Is it now that you had to head out?
Yeah. I'm gonna head out just for a little bit.
All right. So you're all good, sir. Hopefully you have it back on before the show's over. You have the link. We'll see you in a little bit, or if not, thank you for joining us.
All right. I will be tuned in.
Appreciate it.
Sounds good.
All right. Yeah. So just to quickly give my thoughts on the other films, because I spent most of it filling in the behind the scenes stuff. Shazam, I am looking forward to, because I really enjoyed the first one, and I don't think David Sandberg's made a bad film yet, so I'm hoping that this movie continues to be just as fun. The Flash, I feel like, is this like 30-handed Olympic race that's been like everyone in Hollywood has hit a piece of the Flash at some point over the years. So I feel like there's just going to be a collective sigh of relief when it finally hits theaters. And then Ezra's going to like bash somebody in the back of the head, and we'll just start all over.
And then, we have to push you back again. It's funny because we've had 9 seasons of The Flash before the Flash movie came out. It got announced like before the show even premiered.
I went into it at one point with my brother, because he was like, what is the full production thing? The remnants of a Flash film, and apparently elements that carried into this film, exist as far back as 2006.
Yeah.
Think about that. They've been trying to make a Flash movie since 2006.
Yep. And then there was
I have a little sister. She wasn't born yet when they started trying to make this movie. She's 16 now.
There's so many writers on this movie. Ezra Miller even wrote a script. Ezra Miller wrote a script for it too. And Ezra Miller said, hey, listen, if you don't take my script, I'm not going to play the Flash. They're still, playing the Flash. But they wrote a script. Like a full script.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if recently the part of the delay was, oh shit, the Flash TV show's got renewed for another season. We can't do the Flash movie now. Just move it.
And then Aquaman, personally, I don't care about, because I didn't love the first one anyways. So the fact that it's like a whole year away is just like, okay, whatever.
I haven't even seen the first one.
Blue Beetle, I really want to succeed. But now that I know there's a good chance that it's not going anywhere, I'm just like, I mean,
they could continue it. That's why I don't know how much connection there is with you know, the
of the other
old
stuff,
DC
right?
universe, but
Because I
could
think
still continue it
I think
as
of
long as
any
it's
of
not
these
like connected.
characters, personally for me, if I were going to continue any of these, I would give Shazam the third film. If it's good, if it makes money and all that, I would give him the trilogy.
Mhm.
And I would continue Blue Beetle and make him a part of your new universe. But I still even think at this point, Aquaman is too ingrained in the old stuff to continue it.
Yeah.
And the Flash, again, Ezra Miller, we've all been down that road. It just,
Yeah. Excuse you.
even if he gets better, PR wise,
Mhm.
move on.
Yeah, I mean, you know me, I'm team hard reset. I would definitely
Right.
because Blue Beetle apparently is going to be a really good because it was supposed to be HBO Max, and then they said,
It
you know
got
what,
bumped,
this
yeah.
movie's too good. We're gonna make it a theatrical film. So as long as, like I said, it's not connected to anything, it's its own thing, or you can remove something that won't really affect the movie that has some connection. Just like I said, move that next year. Just have that be the first movie. Let Flash be the final movie that completely just ends everything, and then go in and do your new DCU. That's what I thought, but I'm willing to give it an opportunity just to see what James Gunn and Safran have.
Yeah, I mean it's
Yeah, absolutely.
and it's one of those ones like, and it's kind of going to lead into the discussion anyway, because it's worth noting like James Gunn has said that things like the Batman Robin Pattinson and the Joker movies, they're still going to continue. They're just going to be under the brand DC Elseworld. So if they did want to, do like a Shazam 3, but they don't decide that later on they don't want Zachary Levi in the new DCU, that Shazam 3 could become part of that DC Elseworlds. Like,
Right.
so
Yeah, 'cause-
Right.
there's
Which-
definitely ways
that
around
was-
getting a food.
That was exactly where I was going to head next before we get into the actual breakdown. Is because one of the things that sort of continued over the last couple of months is this, like, James Gunn's ruining DC, James Gunn's doing this, yada yada yada,
Yeah.
because a lot of shit got canceled. I believe
Mhm.
everything on the CW, with the exception of Superman and Lois to this point, has been given the axe. If it's not ended already, it is coming to an end this year.
Well,
I thought
and
Gotham
wouldn't be
Knights
shocked,
was still coming
unfortunately, if
out.
Superman and Lois
Gotham Knights is still starting this year, but whether or not that gets another season is yet to be seen.
Judging by
that
the
shit gets
trailer,
another
it's not getting
season-
another season. Judging by
if
the
that
trailer,
shit
we're not
gets
getting
another
another
season. So yeah, so most of the CW stuff has been canned. And again, I wouldn't be shocked if Superman and Lois was unfortunately far behind it. I've heard great things,
Yeah.
but just given the MO, I wouldn't be shocked.
Right.
The HBO shows have gotten the axe. We know that Titans is ending. We know that Doom Patrol is ending. I don't believe anything official has been said about Harley Quinn, but that still has episodes yet to air. And again, I wouldn't be totally shocked if they can that too. But as of now, it is still airing.
I think
So-
Harley Quinn's got a Valentine's Day special coming in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
That'll
I
probably
think-
be fun. So tune in for that. Because HBO Max doesn't have as much content as they used to. So, you got to get it while it's there. Otherwise, they're going to take it off and sell it to fucking Roku or something.
Yeah.
It's going to Amazon.
But DC is still creating content outside of the DC universe, and it was briefly addressed in the video, but it was spoken more of after the fact about DC Elseworlds. Now, the two big titles were the Joker sequel, Joker Folie à Deux, which is still one of my favorite titles ever because it's so pretentious. But also Matt Reeves' The Batman Part 2, which is its official title as of now. Both of those films were given official release dates. One will come out October 4th, 2024, and Batman will come out for October 3rd, 2025. He also said that Teen Titans Go will continue. That'll also be a part of DC Elseworlds, and that the doors open for other things to continue developing in the DC Elseworlds. But they will be specifically branded so, because the idea is everything that we are developing on a film front, a TV front, a games front, even no games were announced, but they mentioned that games would be included too, is all going to be straightforward from here out unless it's branded as DC Elseworlds, and so this has nothing to do with the universe that we're building. So Matt, Malcolm, just quick thoughts. Good, I'm assuming that's a good thing that they're doing this.
Yeah, it really is. As I said, and if they do want to give Aquaman its trilogy, Shazam its trilogy, then but they don't want it being part of the new thing, then DC Elseworlds is where they would go, and I think it's a good thing because it means that there's no more of this. Oh, but there's two Batman. Which one is which? Because it's going to be clearly branded as such. And as I know, the DCU people are like, oh, we would love the DCU to combine with Arrowverse, but Warner Bros. Just doesn't like the combination of whatever.
Right. No, I like that they're doing Elseworlds for things like the Batman and for Joker 2. Folie à Deux, which is, I know you love it because the pretentiousness. I think it's stupid because the pretentiousness. It's dumb.
Imagine trying to spell it in a trivia match.
It worked.
And he's like, "We're gonna make it a musical too, guys. We're gonna have singing." Well, I can't wait to see Joker just start singing a song about how the world's mad. It's mad, mad, mad world. But I do think Elseworlds is a good idea. I like that they're doing that. So that's obviously pretty exciting. And that gives them an opportunity to do other things. Like if they want to continue Harley Quinn, that's an Elseworlds because James Gunn did say, hey, whoever is in the animated stuff, they're also going to be in the live action playing the characters they played in the animated shows. And I would assume games as well. Like if a game comes out, you're going to voice the character in the game. That's what I'm going to assume as well. So I think that's cool, but Harley Quinn would be Elseworlds. They continued it. And then, I don't know, maybe they decide to do maybe an old man Superman movie with Henry Cavill one day, and that's Elseworlds. It opens up the opportunity where, if Aquaman 2 isn't as well received or doesn't do as well as they think, Aquaman 3 Elseworlds. Shazam 3 Elseworlds, because I'm sure even though James Gunn said, hey, I'll work with people who have different opinions than me after the Levi stuff that happened, which I'm sure DC loved dealing with that, Twitter spree that happened with everybody freaking out about it. They can move that to Elseworlds too. So I think it's a smart option because they can move maybe the stuff that isn't as well received if, they decide not to have an universe or whatever, they can move to Elseworlds. So I think that's smart.
Yeah, absolutely. And it allows them to experiment in that way should they continue. Also, just in general, anything that allows the Batman to get a sequel is awesome because that movie was probably one of the best things they've made in a while. And so with that, we're going to go ahead. We spent the first, hour or so preambling to it. So we'll spend the second hour getting into the show lineup, and perfect timing almost joining us. He is the head of our connected sister channels, TM Geek. So who better to talk about geeky shit with? He is Kevin, the philosopher Poss. Kevin, welcome to the show, sir. You look like you are sitting in the Dudes 2022 pad. So
yeah. That's I'm just chilling downstairs today. I didn't feel I sit in the office enough, so decided to just hang downstairs. Just finished a great movie. So yeah, just excited to talk about some DCU stuff. Glad. Sorry to be late, but it is what it is.
Very nice.
I just want to say it's a fun note the way that he said DCU as if he was forgetting to add the E in. Meanwhile, I noticed the way that I've always said DCEU, like I enunciate the E, like it shouldn't have been there to begin with, because it sounds weird. But yeah, so let's go ahead and get into it. And we're going to talk about these announcements in the same order that they were brought up in the official announcement video. And I have some details and stuff to read off as well. So the first one, and I'm assuming unless production issues happen, these things will be released in the order that they were announced. So presumably the first project that will be released is going to be Creature Commandos. And this brings in the thing that you were talking about, Matt, which is Gunn has said that where applicable, in probably most situations, they want the actors who are voicing characters to portray them in live action, and they want the live action actors to portray them in animation. Now, I think this will probably work something similar to like a what if scenario where like 8 out of 10 characters on that show are voiced by their actors in the thing, and then there are very particular scenarios where they're not. For example, they don't want to waste an actor's contract, so they're not having them do it, or like Spider-Man's not voiced by him because that's a different contract that's not in place. So I assume in instances like that, there will be changes, but Creature Commandos will be the first thing that'll come out. Now, in the comics, Creature Commandos was initially set up in the 1980s, and they were a World War II group of the weirdest warriors available: werewolves, vampires, gorgons, and Frankenstein's monster, that were put together by the U.S. to fight German forces. Creature Commando is being updated to modern day. It is going to be in the main timeline of the DCU. And in this 7-episode animated miniseries, which was completely written by James Gunn, the show will focus on Amanda Waller once again putting her hand in the pot and putting together a weird-ass team. We saw the Suicide Squad. We saw the Justice League of Society and Shazam, which is like the more legit team that she put together. And now we have the Creature Commandos. And in the show, the Creature Commando will consist of Rick Flag Sr., who is the father of Rick Flag, as portrayed by Joel Kinnaman in the Suicide Squad films, the amphibian character Shade, scientist Nina Mazursky, Dr. Phosphorus, Frankenstein and the Bride of Frankenstein, the military maid, GI robot, and the returning Weasel, who, again, presuming will be played once again by his brother Sean Gunn. Weasel was, of course, a member of the Suicide Squad in the Suicide Squad, having the most memorable rat face in that film aside from Pete Davidson. Creature Commandos is one of those things that is like right up James Gunn's alley. So the fact that this is the first thing that they'll be putting out makes way too much sense. So what are your guys' thoughts on Creature Commandos? Had anybody heard of this before it was announced? Just out of curiosity.
So I haven't heard about this. I have no idea what this is about. Weasel's the only thing I know about this. So while you guys talked about it, and I'm sure, probably literally anybody on planet Earth knows more about it than me, I'm going to eat this garlic bread that I have right here.
All right, you enjoy that garlic bread. Malcolm, Kevin, what are your guys' thoughts on Creature Commandos?
Yeah, I'm unfamiliar with this team from the comics as well. From what I've heard from it, it's basically the Universal Monster movies join forces and do stuff. But it looks like this time they're twisting it up a little bit by throwing Weasel in the mix. So whether that makes Weasel an official Universal Monster now, I don't know. But yeah, honestly, I'm intrigued in this. Like, this is one of the interesting things that I was really looking forward to, and it's good to see them sort of embracing some horror stuff as elements in this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Kevin, what are your thoughts on the animated series Creature Commandos?
Yeah, I'm super excited about this. First off, I have never heard of Creature Commandos before this, so that it's new to me. But similar to the Suicide Squad and other things like that, even Guardians of the Galaxy, when you put teams together of different personalities, I really enjoy seeing how those personalities clash and come together at the end, to make the team what they are supposed to be. So yeah, I'm excited about this, and and especially with James Gunn at the helm, I think it'll be, I know it'll be great. So, and like Malcolm said, throw some horror in there. Between this and Swamp Thing, we're getting some horror, which I really enjoy.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And what are your guys' thoughts briefly before we move on to the next one about theoretically the first project? Now, obviously, Shazam, Flash, Blue Beetle, whatever, they could all carry over. But
Yeah.
in terms of the new creative team being in charge, this is the vision moving forward. What do you think about the first thing that they're releasing being an animated project? Is that like a true? Because to me, that's almost like a real in-your-face statement of like, we are using all art forms. We're using television. We're using film. We're using animation. We're going to do whatever serves the story best. And even Gunn said that. He said, when ideas were brought into the creatives room for this universe, they weren't brought in as shows or films. They were brought in as ideas. They were expanded upon. And then from there, it was decided, is there enough for a show? Should this be a movie? What fits this here? So what are your thoughts on an animated show being kind of the first thing?
It's interesting that they're doing it, but I like that they're not launching it just with like a movie, because they could easily have started the universe with a movie, like Superman. They could have easily done that, and it would have made sense. Everybody would have been like, okay, yeah, Superman or Batman, okay, that makes sense. But the fact they're doing an animated show, it's different. I like it. Again, I don't know anything about it, but really for something like this, with how unknown this comic line is, I think the fact that they're doing it in an animated show format, I think it's smart too, that they're not doing this as a live action movie. They're just saying, hey, we're gonna do it as a show first, and if people respond well to it, then that's gonna help with some of the other properties when they come in. So yeah, I like that they're doing something different to start the universe.
Yeah. All right, so then we'll go ahead and move on to the next property in this lineup, which is going to be a second HBO Max series before we get to the films, and that is going to be Waller. Now, this was where, for fans, things started taking a shift of, what is happening? Because Viola Davis was confirmed to return. We also got the sort of subliminal announcement that a lot of people I don't think have been realizing, which is Peacemaker Season 2 is still happening. It's just Gunn has chosen to focus his efforts into what he is writing for the new universe first before going back to Peacemaker. But he has said that the Waller series focusing on Viola Davis will serve as in terms of the universe, a sort of sequel to Creature Commandos because she has involvement there as well, but it will serve as a direct sequel to Peacemaker Season 1, which, if you remember, it saw her and a lot of her secrets connected to the Peacemaker team being exposed to the public. Gunn has said that this series serves as sort of a pseudo continuation in the meantime while we wait for Peacemaker Season 2, as he wants to be directly involved in that. And one of the things that I liked about this, and I don't have the full list in front of me, unfortunately, is when Gunn talked about all the different creatives that were being brought into the writer's room to work on these different projects. And I mean, if anyone wants to talk about, Gunn not appreciating current DC and canceling things, well, one of those people is Jeremy Carver, who is the lead writer for Doom Patrol. He's one of the lead writers for Waller. He's also being joined by Crystal Henry, who was one of the writers for Watchmen. Which I think is huge that they're bringing someone like that in as well. And it's been said that this show will connect to Peacemaker.
Excuse me.
And that some of the cast members will come back over. If I had to guess, I'm assuming Cena and Freddie Stromo, who played Vigilante, won't be involved. It's also very obvious, just based on the fact that the character was, spoiler alert, I guess, was killed in Season 1. But Chakudi Iwuji's Mern will not be involved. But I would imagine that the other agent characters, played by Daniel Brooks, Jennifer Holland, and Steve Agee, will all come back because they make sense. Jennifer Holland even also cameoed in Black Adam in one of the most confusing cameos of the DC universe. Why the fuck was she in that underground base? That was really weird. But other than that, what are your guys' thoughts on Waller being second? It's sort of like, this is almost as if the MCU opened with a Nick Fury show, right? Like, that's kind of what it feels like this is.
kind of. I want to speak on the animated show first. Just to back up 1 second. Like, I think that's actually a really good idea because they've gotten such positive reviews on the Harley Quinn TV series on HBO. And animated shows seem to be making a little bit of a comeback, especially adult-oriented animated shows. So I think that's a good move. But anyway, as far as Waller goes, it almost seems to me like kind of like they want to like slide this in somewhere. It's all that's what it feels like. It's like they're not sure how good it'll be, so they just kind of want to slide it in, and then we'll see how it goes. But I think it has potential, but then again, I think we have to see the rest of Peacemaker to see where this would go. Obviously,
Well, I mean, a lot of people have been theorizing that the reason that James Gunn put Peacemaker season 2 on hold a little bit is because he's going to use Waller to maybe set up something for that. And honestly, I'll be surprised if James Gunn told his wife, like, no, you can't be in DCU anymore. Because
which to some extent, and I'll put it back over to you, Malcolm, does make sense because at the end of season 2, probably the two biggest hooks you get going forward are the public reveal of a lot of what Waller's done. And then you also have with Peacemaker personally, the fact that his father, played by Robert Patrick, is still kind of in his head. He's not completely gone yet. But the Waller reveal was just as big. So I think the fact that this sort of, I feel like this is kind of, and I'm going to compare it to a shitty show, which feels bad, but this sort of feels like the Book of Boba Fett to The Mandalorian, if that makes sense, where you're shifting POV just a little bit to focus in on something else, but it'll tie back into the other show eventually. I'm just hoping that these writers actually like the character of Amanda Waller and want to do something with this show.
Right.
Because the Book of Boba Fett didn't have that.
I mean, yeah. On that note, I wouldn't be surprised if, like, anything that has a potential connecting to Peacemaker, I wouldn't be surprised if these are the ones that James Gunn's probably going to look after himself, just to just to keep that continuity.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he even said in the announcement, like, because he wrote Creature Commandos and he's writing Superman, he put Peacemaker on the back burner because he wanted to do it himself. So he gave Waller to other writers in the writer's room to work on. So he even admitted that himself, that like that's why Peacemaker's not coming first. Matt, your thoughts for him as well.
So I like Viola Davis. Very, very good actress. One of the best working in the business today. But you know my whole thing. I'm team hard reset, hard reboot. So when I heard that Waller's coming up next and it's going to have Viola Davis returning, some Peacemaker, I was just like, oh, great. But no, I like her in the role. I'm still going to watch the show. I still think it's going to be a good show. I'm still looking forward to it. But, you know, I had that in the back of my head where I was like, just please reset, do a hard reset, move on. You know, just I like her, but, you know, I also like a lot of other people in roles, but acknowledge that, you know, things have to change and end. But I want to check it out. They got some really talented writers on this show, so I'm sure it's gonna be really good.
So,
I wish they would have rebooted completely.
So, Matt, I'll go propose something and see how would you feel about this. What if they use the Waller show as the way to get Viola Davis out? Like maybe at the end of the series, for whatever reason, they kill off her character. And it's because I mean they could. I mean, not that I'm saying kill off Viola Davis, but it's just one of those ones. Like, what if they're using it as a way to take her out, so to speak? To maybe set up something, an interesting dynamic for Peacemaker season 2. And because I mean, it could be like some of these actors might sort of had something on the contracts. Like, so James goes like, we want to use some of these somehow. So, yeah.
I mean, it would be an interesting thing if they went in that direction. I still like I just wanted a hard reset personally. Like I'm still looking forward to the show. I'm still gonna check it out. I still think it's good. It's just more of a nitpick for me where I'm like,
Yeah.
I wish they would just did a hard reset, just completely go in a new direction. But I mean, that would be an interesting direction they would go, and it would really add something really interesting to season 2 of Peacemaker. And remember, this is not the entire slate for phase 1, if we're going to call it phase 1. This
Chapter
is
one,
only part
what
of
they
it.
called it.
Yeah, it's
Gods
like it's
and
part of
monsters.
yeah, it's only part of the Gods and Monsters
Right.
phase. So we're gonna obviously probably in a year, 2 years, we'll hear more stuff, or maybe even
Yeah.
at the end of this year, we'll hear about some more projects that get announced that, maybe it's a press release where we get Plastic Man the movie coming out in theaters starring Ryan Gosling as Plastic Man.
Polka
But,
Dot
Alright,
Man,
so
the
very,
film.
very quickly before we move on to the next big project, roundtable real quick. Waller, God or monster?
Monster.
Malcolm?
Was it?
Waller, God or monster?
After what she did to Peacemaker's dad,
Yeah.
monster.
Evan?
Yeah, she's a monster.
But God is a woman, so I mean, she has to be. Nah. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move on to the big one. So much so that even Gunn himself was sort of jokingly like, well, yeah, the universe starts before this, but this is like the start of where it really starts to hit. And
Yeah.
that is Superman Legacy. So this is the Superman film. This will be the first solo Superman project since Man of Steel 10 years ago in 2013. It'll be a 12-year gap by the time this releases on July 11th, 2025. That is fucking insane when you say that out loud.
Yeah.
And the script, it's being written by James Gunn. At the moment, Gunn is not directing the project, which I think is probably for the best, but he is writing the project. And he has said that the story is heavily inspired by the Grant Morrison run All-Star Superman. Now, was very clear to state that it is not a direct adaptation, because All-Star Superman is sort of about leading up to the death of Superman, but that he was heavily inspired by the feel of that comic and specific details within that comic that he wanted to adapt and bring to film. His quotes on it were, it focuses on Superman balancing his Krypton heritage with his human upbringing. He's the embodiment of truth, justice, and the American way. He is kindness in a world that thinks of kindness as old-fashioned. I really love the idea of Superman. He's a big old galoot. He's a farm boy from Kansas who's idealistic. His great weakness is that he'll never kill anybody, doesn't want to hurt a living soul. And I like that innate goodness about Superman as his defining characteristic. Now, some people on the internet will say that you had to recast Henry Cavill from this because Henry Cavill destroyed a lot of people in that Man of Steel battle. But if we put that aside, jokes aside, it seems as though they want to go with a slightly younger Superman. That was the indication. Cavill, I don't even believe is 40, or maybe he's just over the 40 line, but maybe even younger than that. Of course, there's also the connotation of Cavill's connection to the old DCEU. Matt, I know what you're going to say. Actually, I don't know what you're going to say. What are your thoughts on Gunn's sort of approach to speaking about Superman as a character and what he wants in this adaptation?
Right. So he's 39.
39.
Henry
Okay, so he's
Cavill's
pushing
39
40.
years old. Yeah.
Push him.
So, could have had 10 years of Superman, but, whatever.
We
personally,
we're close in age.
Yeah, like for me, I think this is the way to go if you're gonna start a new DC universe. I think this is the way to go. Do a young Superman, just start fresh. That's what I think should happen, personally. So I was obviously happy to hear that they were going in this route, and it sounds interesting. This is kind of more of what some people think of when they think of Superman. Not what Zack Snyder wanted to do at first. More of that, like, I'm a good Boy Scout. I'll listen to you, Daddy type of guy. So I like that they're doing this. I'm looking forward to it. It comes out in 2 years, which is pretty crazy. I thought it would have came out in like 3 years. So I'm a little surprised it's coming out this fast, but I mean, I guess it makes sense. I would assume this year we're going to hear about who is going to play as Superman. So should give us a better idea of what they're going to go with, what direction they're going to go with.
Because you'd imagine with that timeline, they'll be looking to gear up to shoot by early next year.
Yeah, and honestly, if they're going to cast somebody, I kind of hope it's from Euphoria. Jacob, last name starts with an E. I think he's a very good actor.
I thought you were going to say Trimble.
Yes, him. Not him. But he's only 25 years old. He's got like the jawline that you would want with Superman. Very, very good actor. I thought, what I've seen of him in Euphoria, he's very, very good. So that's who I hope they go with. But I am very curious to see who James Gunn is going to cast, because that will tell us what type of Superman we're going to get. Like, we're going to have a better idea than what he's telling us right now.
True. Malcolm?
I just, on the side note, I find it funny that in the Suicide Squad, James Gunn introduces a character who, in the comics, had either murdered or weakened Superman at one stage, and now James Gunn is bringing back Superman. So I just find it funny that this kind of trajectory that we went. But yeah, I mean, I'm open to this. Like, I've heard Jacob Elordi being suggested by multiple people. I've not seen Euphoria, so I have no idea who it is. But look, it's one of those ones like I'm open for, and I'm good. It's one of those ones like at this early stage, I just don't know much about it. Like, it sounds cool, and but it's all going to depend on like who's cast and that. And I dare say we're probably going to get more about all of these announcements at Comic-Con. So
yeah, that's probably when we're going to hear is Comic-Con, or if they do the DC fandom thing again. I wouldn't be surprised if they announced it there.
Oh, it's like, yeah, I mean, I think DC fandom's dead. I think it's going to be Comic-Con. Going back to Comic-Con. They didn't do it last year, but whether or not they do it again this year, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, if they're going to do their own thing, I think it'd be smart to kind of do what Kevin Feige and Marvel did with Phase 3, where maybe just do like a private thing like they did when they announced these movies, and just rent out a theater for some of the press to go to, do a whole thing where you announce who's going to play who and stuff, and then release it later and kind of have like its own online event, or heck, maybe even get like a, convention center, just like a small thing for a day or two, and, sell tickets to make more money, because, Warner Brothers is like so much debt, so might as well get some of that money back.
Yeah, absolutely. Kevin, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I'm kind of all over the place when it comes to Superman. I'm more excited to see who the villain's gonna be.
Yes.
I know names have been floated, including Gorilla Grodd, and even like the Joker. So it's going to be an interesting. I think that'll make the most interesting point, because Gunn said it's not going to be necessarily like a good versus bad story, like it has been in the past. So it'll be interesting for sure. I hate that we have to wait so long for it, but that if that's going to be the true beginning of the DCU, then so be it.
Yeah, I know a lot of people want Brainiac. I hope they wait a little bit for Brainiac, maybe for like a second movie or third movie.
Yeah, that I agree.
Yeah, I think you got to introduce Lex Luthor eventually, but again, that's like a second movie, third movie type of villain.
Yeah, that's definitely like a third movie.
I think with Luthor, they should take a note from the Batman, and like you can have him there if you'd like, just like they had Barry Keoghan originally 2 scenes. He only ended up being in 1 scene. you can set the groundwork, but he doesn't have to be a thing until later.
Right. You don't
Yeah.
have to like make him the big bad in the first movie.
Because
I mean,
for me, in the few times I've seen it, okay, few times is an over exaggeration, and like the 2 times I've seen it since it was in theaters, one of the big things that stuck out to me with Batman v Superman is that Lex Luthor is such a young Lex Luthor, and his exposure to Superman is just as much as the rest of the world's.
yeah.
I don't really understand his motivation to want to kill him. Like, I don't think it's actually well set up as to like why he would want to take Superman out, just aside from the generic power and whatever else.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not really that well set up. I feel like they're just more going off the fact that it's Lex Luthor, so you should expect Lex Luthor to want to kill.
I think that's what Gunn wants to get away from, is just that, you know,
Jesse Eisenberg is
good
Lex
guy
Luthor, yes.
versus a bad guy, like for just those reasons only. So
Well,
I'm excited for that.
Yeah, as well as ones like I don't mind if they want. I mean, like I said on in the comments of someone else's videos, like I don't want them to start off with Lex Luthor again. I think I mean Lex Luthor is the one that I think should be saved for a future movie, but teased from the get go. I get he's the most popular villain of Superman, the one that most people know. I wouldn't mind if they start off with Brainiac though, just with that Krypton connection and all that. But does anyone know what Superman's actual first villain was in the comics?
Mr. Mxyzptlk.
Whoever put the cat in the tree.
Yeah, really.
No, it was this character called Ultra Humanite, who
I'd love to see something like that.
Who you saw, who was in Stargirl, so in that, but so which is basically a giant gorilla type thing, but yeah, so if they start off with that, there'll be a really interesting villain, like especially if they want to kind of respect like the comics in a way, like if they want to start off starting off with the first villain that was started off in the comics could be an interesting move to go.
That really would be.
Yeah. So we'll go ahead and move on to the next project that'll be coming out, which is the 3rd show of the new DC universe, and that is Lanterns.
Excuse you.
Now, interestingly enough, we've learned more about the Green Lantern project that got canned since this announcement than we had previously before. Because for those who are in the know, in the DCEU, Greg Berlanti was developing a Green Lantern show for HBO Max. Actors Finn Wittrock and Jeremy Irvine had both already been cast in the show as Guy Gardner and Alan Scott. They had also said that there would be 3 other leading lanterns in the form of Jessica Cruz, Simon Baz, and an original character for the show named Bree Jarda. And other than that, there was not much that was really known about it. In the time since this has been canceled, it's since come out that the show was meant to be sort of a galactic space opera, which was going to be focused on multiple lanterns and multiple different eras. So it wasn't just 5 lanterns all in the same era. These different lanterns would have been spread across different eras. And we would have kind of gotten to see this connecting arc and story over the course of this elongated time span. That is now out the window. Greg Berlanti, for all intents and purposes, is no longer with DC. His connection is severed at this point. Excuse me.
I think he's kind of involved with DC, but not nearly as much as he was. I thought, unless it was somebody else I read that ended up staying with them, but it just was like a small role within DC.
True. So with that, the show that we're getting now, which is entitled Lanterns, Gunn and Safran said that it is going to be a kind of buddy cop show with featuring Jon Stewart and Hal Jordan working together, and it will be a terrestrial-based series in the style of HBO's True Detective, in which these two will be working as the Green Lanterns of Sector Earth and get sucked into this sort of bigger, expansive issue. And they said that just as how Superman, in terms of on the big screen, is going to be the thing that really sets the new universe's story in motion in television, Creature Commandos will be fun. Waller will be connected to that whole thing. Lanterns is going to be the first show that'll really tie into the overarching story they want to tell and will bring a lot forward for that. And so to talk about it first, I'm going to reintroduce Mr. JB3, who's able to rejoin us. Sir, what are your thoughts on the Lantern series?
There's not much I know about it, but I will say that I do enjoy, in general, the Green Lantern, like any of the stories. I kind of liked the movie, but in my mind, I think it's gonna have some redemption for the character and for the universe that it's in. Just its presence in the DCU, I think, will be a lot better. Because, say what you want. Some people might even like the film, but the Green Lantern film got a lot of bad rep. So I think that going into something like this, that stain is still there, and I think that this show might be like Mr. Clean. It's gonna get that stain cleaned up, and that's what I'm hoping.
Absolutely. Whoever wants it next.
Huh? You're muted, Kevin.
We were talking yesterday, or I don't know when it was, the last Geek match we had. We were talking backstage before the match, and somebody brought up, the Lantern series and the fact that can you do like a DC Green Lanterns, comic book style True Detective show? And that's basically what it's going to be. And it's like, hell yeah, you can. And I really think this is going to be awesome. So especially if it's something like that show, and Space Cops, put them together. I totally agree with JB3. This will be the Green Lantern redemption that it needs, because you can't even bring up that movie without an eye roll or a face palm. Like, I wish
or Ryan Reynolds himself making fun of it.
Yeah, exactly. For sure. So, Hal Jordan, John Stewart, that story needs a reboot for sure. So this will do it.
Yeah, every time it gets mentioned, there's like this smell of shit that follows right after. But no, I'm happy that they're doing this. I'm happy to see the Lanterns are back in it. I'm really surprised that they're actually doing both Hal Jordan and John Stewart. I thought they would have done one or the other and then introduce, whoever they didn't do, and then a future movie or show. And I'm really surprised this is going to be a TV show and not a movie. Like, this really feels like it would thrive as a movie, but maybe part of the reason why they're not doing a movie and they're doing a show is because of the Ryan Reynolds movie that came out. And they're like, you know what? We think this is going to be really cool, but there's still a lot of people that don't like the movie. We're going to do a show first, and then we'll do a movie in the future. But it sounds interesting that it's a True Detective style show, buddy cop show. I was listening to Campia's show, and I can't remember if it was him or Rob that brought it up, but what if the thing they're investigating is the anti-life equation? And that's like the thing they're looking into, and they discover it. And that would, of course, set up the larger world of DC, and that would obviously unveil their plans for what they're building towards, which would be Darkseid. So I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. I think this can be really cool. I'm very curious to see who they cast, though. I'm really curious. I really hope, because I don't think Michael B. Jordan's Superman movie or show is going to continue. I think that's kind of on the back burner. I think they're doing a Black Superman movie or show, but that's an Elseworlds.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's Michael B. Jordan, though. So maybe you can cast
The one they continued with, because they had a couple different Black Superman projects in the works. Unfortunately, there's no better way to title them because they haven't given us anything. The one that is continuing is the one that was being produced by J.J. Abrams and written by Ta-Nehisi Coates. That is the one that they are continuing to move forward with, which would mean that J.J. Abrams' deal with Warner Brothers finally produced something.
Yeah, he's
but
finally doing something for Warner Brothers. Made all that money. Maybe they can cast Michael B. Jordan as Jon Stewart. You know, maybe they're like, hey, you know, we're not going to do your Superman movie, but do you want to be Jon Stewart in our DC universe?
Yeah, no, it's one of those ones like this Lantern show sounds interesting, and honestly, I think it's one of those ones like I wouldn't be surprised if they're doing it this when they're going to have like it'd be like a Ant-Man type situation where Hal Jordan is going to be this old one who's kind of on the verge of retiring and just wants to be a mentor to Jon Stewart. But I've got a different actor in mind, someone who technically has played Jon Stewart before in a series. And I'm talking about David Ramsey, who played John Diggle, who was revealed to be Jon Stewart in the Arrowverse. But once again, someone who was supposed to be a Green Lantern at some stage, but then was burned due to creative reasons.
Right.
Oh,
and I think
my thought with the Green Lantern was because when you said like maybe Hal Jordan's a bit older and washed up, I'll see. Because I don't know as much about the comics, so my thought process is through the film. So I'm thinking, like, who's older and washed up and could be that sort of snarky, like, teacher? And then my first thought was Sam,
Army Hammer.
Yeah, that's a little too old.
He is a little too old.
Sam Elliott's Green Lantern, I think, is flying around in a wheelchair. I don't know if that man can. That would be the least convincing casting since they cast. I think it was Sam Elliott was cast as like Bradley Cooper's brother in A Star Is Born, and you're like, hold up, brother?
Yeah, brother. Right.
You're sure you're not his
brother
father.
From another mother.
Tommy
Wiseau is Hal Jordan.
Actually, funny enough, to get to the end of my joke, my thought was, well, if you keep him out of an actual classroom, James Franco can play washed up.
There you go.
No, so we'll go ahead and move on from. That's not a bad. John, I need you to believe me.
I did not hate Sinestro. I did not.
Meanwhile, Michael B. Jordan's like, it's kind of like acting off Stallone. It's fine. We'll do that. We'll do Stallone and Michael B. Jordan. We'll do.
There you go, Stallone. I'm sure Stallone wants to work with Michael B. Jordan after not being in Creed 3.
Yeah.
So no, maybe you could have Steve Carell. Let Steve Carell be the older Hal Jordan.
It's actually
because that.
So we'll go ahead and Jesus Christ, if my voice.
Or Big Show. Have Big Show.
The Big Show.
Dave Bautista.
Bautista.
Yeah, there you go, Bautista.
He follows James Gunn to the.
No pineapples.
We'll go ahead and move on to the next one, which will be the second film in the DC universe, and that is The Authority, which I game is quite a shock to people because if you do a little bit of research like I did, The Authority was not actually a DC created character. They were created by another branch of comics called Wildstorm, which DC later picked up as an imprint purchase, and now Gunn is choosing I believe in the comics they have crossed over in years since, but Gunn is choosing to fully integrate them into DC by adapting them into a film. On this Justice League style, he described the group as the anti-Justice League, a group of superheroes with a zero-tolerance approach with any threats that come their way. Gunn said, one of the things of the DCU is that it's not just a story of heroes and villains. Not every film and TV show is going to be about good guy versus bad guy. Giant things from the sky come and good guy wins. There are white hats, black hats, and gray hats. Peter Safran later added, they're kind of like Jack Nicholson in A Few Good Men. They know that you want them on the wall, or at least they believe that. And some outside sources have sort of compared them in terms of not the comedic potential of the movie, because maybe it'll go that way, maybe it won't. But in terms of superheroism acts, they've compared them sort of to The Boys, the Amazon show. So there's an interesting angle here with making this sort of authoritative group of superheroes within this universe. What are your guys' thoughts on this? Again, does anybody even know what this is? What are your thoughts on it leading into it? Or
Yes.
I have no clue.
So this is interesting because the members of the authority is you've got Triple H, you've got Stephanie McMahon, you've got Batista.
oh, that's how we're
Used to be Vince McMahon, I know for a minute. Shane was in there for a minute.
But anyway, no. I knew JB would get that joke, but
Yeah, for real.
but yeah, but with the actual, I'm not too familiar with it, but I know there's like I know there's the characters of Midnighter and Apollo, which is basically Batman and Superman, who, from what I understand, is a of the LGBT community, and they're in a relationship. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know much, but this is one of those ones that really sounds interesting. And it's interesting that James Gunn decided to bring these guys into the fold because one, a lot of this is basically a parody of a lot of DC series as it is, but in saying that, no one really knew who the Guardians of the Galaxy was, and James Gunn did good at bringing them into the fold. So
That's a great point. Two things for me. One, I get like Star Wars vibes when I hear white hats, black hats, and gray hats. It kind of gives me on both sides the Empire, and also there are Jedi. There are white Jedi, dark Jedi, and gray Jedi. So I get that feeling. So I'm curious, but the Peter Safran quote about they are kind of like Jack Nicholson and A Few Good Men. They know that you want them on the wall, or they at least believe that. Like that kind of that has me like hook, line, and sinker. I'm definitely gonna be following this movie, and I'm gonna see it as soon as it comes out. So very interested.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I don't have any. I've never seen it or don't know anything about The Authority.
Yeah, I don't
Matt,
know
JB3?
anything. I have no clue what the authority is. When Malcolm was saying Triple H and all these people, it's like, yep, makes sense. Yep, there you go, yep. But I have no clue. I've heard it's more of a gritty team, so maybe they could go more in the R-rated route because James Gunn did say, we're going to let the stories dictate what's PG-13, what's rated R, and I would also assume PG if they're going to go that route. So this feels like if they're going to do anything that's R-rated, which they will, this is one of the projects I think that would probably line up. This, Waller, and maybe Creature Commando would be the R-rated stuff, which, it's all TV so far. That it sounds like it's going to be more rated R.
yeah, I mean, from what I understand about this group, is that it's a lot darker. And I was under the vision it was going to be a movie, but I don't know. But
I thought it was a HBO Max thing.
No,
maybe I'm wrong.
This is a movie.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a movie. It's not on
release,
HBO. HBO Max movie.
Nope, it'll be a theatrical film.
So yes,
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. I think this. Okay. But yeah, no, I feel like it's.
I feel like it's like a general word of thumb. HBO is not getting movies anymore. They sent House Party to theaters. They're not putting anything on there.
Oh God. Oh,
they
Lord.
put that movie in theaters to fail, so they're not putting anything on HBO Max.
Yeah,
because I think Zaslav is really against putting movies straight onto streaming. I think,
yeah.
But
You
you
should have waited.
not to make it another discussion topic, but I did think that led to my favorite quote that came out of this event was Safran afterwards was asked about Batgirl, and he basically said something along the lines of, "Yeah, that movie wasn't good. Like it would have hurt some careers if it came out." And it's like, whoa.
It's like that was bad. It would hurt us. So yeah, that's bad.
Yeah, it's one of those. I find it funny that Warner Bros. Would send House Party Fairs to fail, but yet they don't send Batgirl Fairs to fail.
I really wish that. I wish some of the scenes popped out online, like some of the Brendan Fraser fight scenes they were talking about.
Sorry,
But
I just pre-purchased my Hogwarts Legacy game.
nice. I'm buying it the 27th when I get back from my trip.
Didn't mean to interrupt you.
Very nice.
All right, so JB3, did you get your thoughts in, or are we good to go?
I mean, I'm kind of along on the same boats with everybody else. I didn't really know much about it. Besides, when I heard it, I pulled up a little article. And from reading the article, yeah, it should probably be an R rating, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, they'd have a lot more freedom to make it what they would need to make it.
Well, speaking of things that'll probably be R-rated, we'll go ahead and move on to the next show, which is Paradise Lost. And Gunn said that this is going to be a prequel to Wonder Woman.
I'm excited about this one.
Not the movies necessarily, but the character that we know and love. It'll be focused on the origins of the island of Themyscira. And he said it is a Game of Thrones inspired story about how did that come about? What is the origin of an island of all women? What are the beautiful truths and ugly truths behind all of that? And what's the scheming like between the different players in that society? In this announcement, he also did mention that they have spoken to Gal Gadot about her potential return as Wonder Woman. And while she is game for the idea, there isn't any plans in place. So don't take that necessarily as a steadfast she will continue. But again, as people have famously now joked on the internet, the door is open is what he kept saying. So it is still firmly open. But what are your guys' thoughts on Paradise Lost as a show coming to HBO Max?
Definitely intrigued.
Yeah, I was totally intrigued. But Gal Gadot, however you say her name, she doesn't need to make an appearance. Like this show has enough to intrigue people, being like that Game of Thrones style. You put somebody in there that's scheming, and you've got what it takes. Like it's an all-female island. You got power players. You got people that are going to be on bottom that want to be on top. No pun intended, but you know what I'm saying. On top of the power pyramid here. So yeah, I mean, like, and it's a prequel. So like, if she wants to show up as a pop in an episode or whatever, then that's cool. But I wouldn't like make her a recurring character or anything.
Yeah, I mean, from my understanding of this show is going to be set before Wonder Woman's even born. So, so I wouldn't be surprised if the end of the movie is going to be sort of her birth, whichever birthing origins they want to go through, if she's clay or sand or whatnot. So yeah. I mean, it's just like a lot of these the Disney Plus shows, like especially like National Treasure. People go, "Oh, when's Nick Cage going in?" Like, if he's going to be in it, he's probably going to be in the last episode. So if Gal Gadot is going to be in this, I wouldn't be surprised if she is in that. If you're
still watching National Treasure, hoping that Nick Cage shows up, they've already said that they're talking to him about season 2. Right. I don't know if that show's still airing or not, but if you're still holding out hope for Nick Cage, he's not going to show up.
I didn't even know they did that show.
I mean, it's still go.
They did.
Is it still actively airing? Good for you guys. Keep it up.
Yeah, I thought it was a weird dream I had that the first episode came out. I didn't know they actually went with it.
I knew it came out because it was on the television my dad was watching, and That seems correct. Yeah.
Funny enough, I'm enjoying it more than I enjoyed the movies. I wasn't a big fan of the
I
movies.
heard it was decent. I didn't hear it was bad, but
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
I
Obviously,
guess it's just all
Um,
about, do you want to watch a bunch of kids do what Nick Cage did 20 years ago?
Yeah.
Right.
but
And
no, this is
isn't
a
also,
show.
what's his name in it too? Harvey Keitel?
Yes,
Harvey Keitel?
Harvey Keitel is in it.
Why? It's wild. That's
Well,
interesting.
he was in the movies. Pay him enough.
Yeah.
True.
Uh,
But to go
So, yeah,
back
what
to
are more thoughts on Paradise Lost? My bad, I derailed that.
no, you're good. This is a show I'm obviously excited for. I'm very curious to see what they do with it, and this is going to be the type of show where I feel like it's gonna push things pretty far, and we're gonna have an idea how far they're willing to push some of their more, because I feel like this is probably gonna be more in the R-rated category. Like you can get away with a lot of stuff on HBO, so I feel like it's gonna be more TVMA. This is a type of show I think for like the live action stuff, we're gonna have a really strong idea how far they're gonna push certain things, because you can do a lot with a Game of Thrones style show set on Paradise Island. So I'm very curious about it. I want to see who they get to work on the show. I think that's going to be very key. Obviously, who's the showrunner going to be? Because obviously that could dictate whether the show is good or not. I think I'll kind of throw a name out there. Stephen DeKnight, who obviously did the first season of Daredevil, and he did Spartacus. That's somebody I think that could be a pretty interesting selection if they're going to go like hard R with like the violence and stuff. I think that's a guy that I would be very curious to see get involved in a show like this. I thought after the first couple episodes of Spartacus, that show was really, really good, and I think he could be a good choice. And I don't think he's really doing anything anyway after Pacific Rim Uprising.
What do you mean? That was a bona fide JB3. What are your thoughts on Paradise Lost?
I think that, kind of the same as everybody else. It's really just more of an interesting deal to see what's going to happen before the birth. I do agree with the statement, like at the end will be maybe like the birth, like maybe the birth of Diana. Or maybe they'll have something like something along the lines of, and then it depends on how long it goes. I think there's, and if they say it's gonna have like some intrigue of the Game of Thrones, and if they have that, that you could go, so that's like a whole different level of intensity. And if they bring it at, I think it can go well with what they're trying to build with the Amazons.
Yep.
I'm surprised you didn't go for the obvious DC joke and call it the rebirth of Diana.
At this moment, they are reaching out to Malcolm for an invitation to the writers' room because
I was just about to say, like, we're gonna see Malcolm just get like bag over his head.
Actually, I can use that as a transition too, because talk about taking classic DC titles and bringing them back. We're going to move on to the third film in this new DC universe, which is Batman: The Brave and the Bold, which I guess they do have to come up with something to, signify it from the Batman. So we're going to go with that, The Brave and the Bold. Now, interestingly, the way they kind of discuss this is it's a Batman film that's not totally focused on Batman, because they seem to set up the God damn it, 1 second.
You're good.
You're good, buddy.
The proper protagonist of the story is actually going to be Damian Wayne, who James Gunn described as Bruce Wayne's little son of a bitch, murderer, assassin. And it'll be a very strange father and son story, with Bruce serving as a mentor to Damian. Now, obviously, Gunn addressed that if you know the classic Batman timeline, if Damian Wayne already exists, that means we've had Dick Grayson, we've had Jason Todd, we've had Tim Drake, we've had maybe insert any of the random one-off female Robins. So, and he said that the movie will address that because this movie is not just an introduction to Damian Wayne, it's not just an introduction to the DCU's Batman, but it's an introduction to the Bat family as a whole in the DCU. And despite the fact that Peter Safran absolutely tore Batgirl a new one, it seems like they want to include those characters in this DC universe. When asked specifically why Damian Wayne, his response was, "He's my favorite Robin. We're basing this on Grant Morrison's comic book run, which is one of my favorite Batman runs. Grant Morrison seems to be a reoccurring influence for James Gunn when it comes to this universe, which to many would be a good thing, as he's one of the higher acclaimed writers in the comic book world." So we'll go ahead and turn this over to you guys. What are your thoughts on Batman, the Brave and the Bold being a father-son Batman story? As long as we don't see the pearls, I don't care.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I'll
Totally
jump.
agree.
I'll jump off
Three
here.
things that I never need to see again. Well, actually, the 4 things in comic books I never need to see again. I don't need to see Magneto at Auschwitz or whichever German prison that was. I don't need to see Ben get shot. I don't need to see the pearls. And I don't need to see Jonathan Kent die of specifically a tornado because that was stupid.
So
but
this is what we're gonna see. Like it's gonna be a dinner scene, and you're gonna have the Batman, you're gonna have Robin, and then you're gonna have Sam Elliott's Hal Jordan. They're all gonna be sitting down. They're gonna be eating food. They're gonna be eating, just chit chat or whatever. And then
he's gonna
Damian,
be Halfred by then.
well, he could play both, but you're gonna have Damian kind of look over at Bruce and go, "Hey, Dad, how did my grandma and grandpa die?" And he's gonna, "Well, son," and it's gonna go you're gonna go back in time, and you're gonna see the pearls and stuff. That's what we're gonna see.
It's just gonna be like that pearl soup scene from the movie Spencer that came out.
They're just gonna add the Batman v Superman pearls being shot, all over the place. They're just gonna put that in there. Maybe speed it up a little bit. That way it doesn't look exactly like the same scene. That's what we're going to get.
So let me ask you guys as well as we're sort of passing this around, because more than any other character, Batman is a character that we're very familiar with at this point. So knowing that the approach is going to be sort of similar to the Ben Affleck one in that it's clearly an older, more experienced Batman. He's been through the ringer of assistance. He's got a son now. Who do you think is your choice to portray this Batman? Who would be your choice?
Sam Elliott.
Sam Elliott. Yeah.
I mean, if we're going older, I could actually see maybe like Jeff Bridges. Somebody somebody grizzled is what I'm thinking.
Maybe Josh
Sam
Brolin.
Elliott.
Josh Brolin would be great. Somebody like that, because it's
George Clooney.
Somebody who you can tell who's been through the ringer. Yeah, hey, George Clooney could get his
redemption.
Redemption, exactly. This could be his redemption story. But
Isn't he the one? Isn't he the one with the nipples in the suit?
Yeah.
Yes,
I want to see the nipples in the suit.
The bat nipples.
It's gonna be zoomed in a couple times.
Hashtag. That's what I want to slow
the reappearance of the bat,
not the pearls.
And the bat card, whatever.
Yeah, the bat card.
That
there we go.
Card.
But
never leave the cave without it.
But I'll just give my quick thoughts. I'll go head off in a minute.
Sure.
But I mean, this intrigues me because the fact that starting with choosing to start Damian Wayne means that theoretically you're going to see Nightwing, Red Hood. I'm not sure who Tim Drake ends up becoming. I think it's Red Robin or something like
Red
that.
Robin.
So theoretically you're going to see them all pop up, and it's just intriguing, and I know Garth has said this before. It means that we're probably going to need to see Ra's al Ghul and Talia, because Damian Wayne's origin is tied extrinsically with Ra's and Talia and all that. So
Yeah.
So we're going to need to see them in the movie too. And it's going to be the Nolan trilogy all over again if we're going to have to start off with racial propaganda.
Yeah, seriously, that's what that sounds like it.
Okay, so hear me out. Hear me out. Let's get Christian Bale back. Let's get Liam Neeson back.
Hey, he's not a bad
Let's
choice.
get what's her name? Oh my God, why can't I remember her name?
Marion
Princess Girl.
Rachel McAdams.
There you go.
Yeah.
Marion Cotillard.
Poor Rachel McAdams.
Yeah, the one who played Talia in Dark Knight Rises. That joke would have worked better if I could remember her name.
Oh no, that's
I believe that's Marion Cotillard.
Yes.
It is. Thank you, Marion Cotillard.
yeah.
Thank you. All I could think of was the chick that kills herself in Inception because it's the same one.
Yeah, definitely. So my thoughts though on the movie
I just want
itself.
to say real quick, sorry, Malcolm, if you do have to head out, sir, thank you for joining us for this first show. I appreciate having you. You're good to check out when you get a chance.
Yeah.
Peace out, Malcolm.
What a crazy man he is. No. But in all seriousness, so my thoughts when it comes to this is you know, I would prefer them to do the younger Batman. I that's what I wish they would have done. I think it's cool that we get a Robin in there. It better not be like a 10-year-old kid. Don't let's not do that. Let's make him 15, 16, you know, like a little older. I don't really want to see a little kid play Batman or I don't want that either. I don't want a little kid to be Robin. But I do wish they would have went more of a younger Batman, kind of in the same age range as Superman, so we could see them kind of get older together. And the same with Wonder Woman, you know, assuming Gal isn't coming back as Wonder Woman. You know, let's get you know, people around the same age to play Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. That's what I would prefer. I still think this has potential to be really cool, you know, because you're gonna have all the Bat family now in future movies, which is pretty cool, like Nightwing and Red Hood and all of them. I just prefer they would have went the younger route, personally. You know, I don't know. Maybe they go with like a 30-something-year-old Batman, and he ended up having a kid. Maybe they change it a little bit where he had a kid that he didn't know about, and the kid just kind of knocks on the door as a 15-year-old. Go, hey, yeah, that bender you were at 15 years ago. Hi. Maybe they do that.
Hell of a party out in the desert. I feel like the only reason they're not going to go with like a young Batman is because they already have Robert Pattinson happening, and I feel like if you're already going to have two Batman film series happening,
right,
having two younger Batman film series happening.
I don't know. You already did the older Batman. Now all you're really changing is he has a son. You know, like he has Damian. That's really the only thing. And it's like at that point, if he's willing to come back, you know, just get Ben Affleck to return. Maybe he would be willing if they change it up a little bit. I don't know. I mean, there was those rumors he's an Aquaman too. I mean, I don't think that actually ended up being true, but those rumors came out that he actually filmed a scene for Aquaman.
Yeah.
But I just wish it would have been a little younger, you know. I don't know, maybe they'll go like mid to late 30s and he had a kid that he didn't know about or something. Maybe they change it a little bit, but that's just my preference. We just got the old Batman, you know. Let's just start with a new one, a younger one for this universe.
It would have to be a new universe too, because I feel like I get the vibes that Ben Affleck's Batman is like he said in the movie, he's been Batman for over 20 years. I feel like that Batman is almost like there's no one in his life at all. Like he just has Alfred in his bat suit.
And that's why I think, because with the Flash they could like change it up a little bit to where maybe it's not that universe's Batman, but it's a different version. He actually ended up having a kid. They just kind of maybe swapped Batman. Or just have Michael Keaton.
Do you think that's lazy writing at this point, though? Do you think it is? Or does it depend?
A little bit. Like
I think they're going to change, you know, Jason Momoa a little bit with Aquaman. I think he's going to be a little different. That's really all I'm saying, where they like change, you know, a little bit about it. Maybe not a different universe, but what happens in Flashpoint, maybe it affects Aquaman a little bit. it's going to affect the Flash because he's going to be played by a different actor in the future. I would assume,
Right.
you know, and then you have like Ben Affleck's Batman changed a little bit and something. I don't know.
I just feel like at this point, Affleck, more than any other actor, Affleck just wants to move on because you remember all those years ago, like Affleck joined this universe pre-relapse. He joined this universe
True.
pre-divorce. He joined
That's
this
true.
universe as a director, as a creative head, as well as an actor.
Yeah.
And when you look at the trajectory of like his life, I hate to put it that way, but like his
No, you're
life
right.
since then, I mean, he joined this
Right.
universe fresh off an Oscar win.
Hey,
And,
he
like-
married J-Lo, so
Right.
something
You
good
know,
came out of it.
So I guess my
mean-
thing is like this universe preceded and was collectively a part of a deteriorative decline in his life for like 10 years that he's just now climbing out of.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd want to go back for like superstitious reasons. And I'm not even really superstitious, but like
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know if I'd want to backtrack into that. You know what I mean?
Part of me feels like he
Right.
wanted to be the Robert Downey Jr. of DCEU,
And Joss Whedon tried.
Right.
God bless him. He really did.
and he just it just didn't work out that way. So
Yeah. I mean, maybe he
So-
can direct this Batman movie instead.
maybe,
You know, because
that-
they
that-
did say that they wanted him to direct something. It's just got to figure out what that movie is going to be. Maybe this is the movie because he does love Batman.
That is true. Yeah, I mean, you gotta give him that.
So,
So is this going to turn out? Let's say, is this going to turn out to be his passion project that he does? So
Maybe.
Possibly,
Deathstroke's
honestly, it's stuck in such a weird position to me because like you got the Paradise Lost show,
Mhm.
and then you got this, and then I'm assuming Aaron, you're about to segue into.
So just because we're coming up on the 2-hour mark, I'm going to throw out the last 3 that we have there and just let you guys talk about what interests you.
All right.
Because we know less about these than some of the others because they're further off.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Cough.
But we had Booster Gold, which is the 5th and final show that was announced, which Gunn said is going to be. He said Booster Gold is imposter syndrome as a superhero. Gunn said of the character who is a fame seeker from the 25th century who goes back in time in order to become a superhero. He winds up becoming a member of the Justice League, but he is sort of a comedic character. A lot of people seem to think that, and there's a rumor that's been going around that Chris Pratt may end up playing this character, and that's sort of the direction they're headed with that.
just get every single person from the Guardians movies.
Right.
But following Booster Gold, we have 2 more films. We have Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, which Gunn said is going to sort of be a counterpoint to Superman in that Superman was raised on Earth with human values and was raised in the way of peace. Supergirl in this iteration was raised on a sect of Krypton that survived out in the galaxy, watching people around her die throughout her childhood. She has different ideals, a different approach to her powers and her responsibility of sort. And then the 5th and final movie that we had was Swamp Thing, which all they said is it's going to be a very horror influenced. Now, whether that's like hardcore horror or like Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness type horror in a superhero thing, we don't really know. But that is the last one they announced. So what are your guys' thoughts? Go ahead and pick any project you like out of those.
Well, what I was referring to was Batman #2, and it being so close to The Brave and the Bold. So that worries me in that Matt Reeves is already directing it, and they already have Pattinson as the Batman in that movie. And I don't know what direction they'll go in. They already said 2025 is going to be a big year for DC. Superman, Batman, same year. I don't know if that's ever happened. I don't think so.
Batman v Superman?
Oh, well, yeah, okay.
Technically,
I'm in separate films, but yeah, sure. But you know what I'm saying? Like, it just feels it feels like it could work against itself. But the Booster Gold sounds very interesting, being about that a loser from a future who basically just comes back to today. It's almost like a Back to the Future kind of story. So that sounds interesting to me. I'm sure it'll have a lot of callbacks to the 80s, 90s. And then Supergirl, anything will be better than the Supergirl we currently have.
Yeah.
But the fact that she's been on just a little rock of Krypton that survived for 14 years, I just wonder how that's going to incorporate and how that'll play into later iterations of Superman and any other super universal DC movie. But of course, Swamp Thing, I'm just excited about because it is Swamp Thing. But
yeah,
those are my thoughts.
So for me, with Supergirl, obviously, it's gonna be better than the movie we got last. Which, I mean, literally, I could take a dump, film it, put it online. It would be better than that Supergirl movie that came out in like the 80s or 90s, whenever it came out. But my only thing is, when it comes to that movie, he said James Gunn said she's gonna be more of like a hardened, type of hero. It's gonna be different that way. The comic they're basing it off of, as far as as far as I understand, that's not her in the comic. She is like Superman, but in like as far as her attitude and everything, how she views things. But she obviously goes through something different where, she sees all the people on Krypton just die of horrible deaths and stuff, and it really makes her, do the heroic stuff she does, so other people don't go through what her people went through. And it sounds like it's going to go more, she's more of like a mature type of hero, more I guess adult, I guess is the best way you put it there. So that does make me curious, because that's a little different than the type of Supergirl in the comic that they're basing off of, but I'm still excited for it. Then you have Swamp Thing, which I'm obviously really excited for. Don't know a whole lot about it, but James Mangold is directing it, or I should say he's in talks. Apparently.
So that's the other bit of news that
say.
came out after the fact. That's not official, but apparently they offered James Mangold a directing opportunity within the DCU, and Swamp Thing is the thing that interests him far and away the most. Which he did.
So,
but they said, according to the article that came out, the only reason that there's no commitments as of now is simply because he just wants to finish Dial of Destiny before he commits himself to anything like that.
Right. But assuming he directs it. Right. And assuming he directs it, which I think he's going to, if that's what he wants to do, and they're going to let him kind of choose what movie he would prefer to direct, that obviously makes me super excited, because he directed Ford v Ferrari, which I think is very, very good. 310 Yuma, I think, is awesome. Logan is, in my opinion, the best comic book movie. So getting him to do this, I think it adds more excitement to this film. Plus, I assume it's gonna be R-rated, which would make sense. And then Booster Gold, that's gonna be more Peacemaker like, if I had to guess. It feels like that's gonna be more in line with Peacemaker, with the type of character he is. I don't know if I want Chris Pratt to play him, because Chris Pratt is everything. He's in every movie. I want somebody else to play Booster Gold. He fits, like, as far as what I understand of Booster Gold, and just the personality of Chris Pratt, it fits. It works. He's a good actor. I just wish it was somebody else, so we can give other people an opportunity. Like, he's taken away roles from white people. He's taken all the white people roles, all the white guy roles. Right. They're going to Chris Pratt. Let's get some other white guys.
I think I have a perfect pick for Booster Gold. Let me give you the pitch, okay?
Yeah.
Andy Dwyer.
You see, I thought you were going to say the guy I was thinking of. I was thinking Andy Samberg actually kind of would work. I actually would like Andy Samberg in that.
Which shout out to anybody who got my joke.
Yeah.
Shout out to anybody But also, actually, Sandberg's not a bad call if you think of it from like a pop star perspective.
Yeah,
Like the
I think
character he played in that. Actually, that's not a bad shout.
Yeah,
No,
that's
not
what
at
I would
all.
go with. And he also isn't like that much older than the guy that's playing Blue Beetle. So like they're going to incorporate Blue Beetle with Booster Gold. It's going to happen eventually. So I don't know much about a Booster Gold
Andy
Beetle,
Sandberg's a good 20 years older than Sholo Maridueña.
okay, well, I thought Andy Samberg was like in his 30s. That's why I said,
Yeah, I'll
they're
look it
like,
up. I'll fact check.
and I'm not even gonna act like I know how to pronounce the guy's name from Cobra Kai. I don't. I still don't know. People will say how to pronounce it, and I still won't know how to say it. I don't think it's 20 years. I don't think Andy Samberg's like in his 40s. I think he's in his 30s at
Okay, so
most.
Sholo, I might still even be butchering it, but I listened to him pronounce it, so I believe it's pronounced Sholo Maridueña. He is 21 years old at this
Oh
time.
wow! I thought he was a
And
little
Andy
older.
Samberg is 44.
He's 44. Good for him.
Yeah,
He looks
no,
good
good
for his
for
age.
him. Actually, his
I need his
Wikipedia
face
profile
care
pic is from
routine.
2010, and he looked way older with that like real Jewy haircut
Uh-huh.
with like the long hair. He's
Yeah.
looked much better.
Yeah, I thought for some reason he was
Sorry if I offended
Younger.
anybody with that. I don't know if that's
right. Yeah, I thought he was like
his haircut Jewy.
30. 35 is what I thought. But no, but I don't know. I think Andy Samberg would be a good choice, even though he's 20 years older than XO, however you say his name. I think I think he'd be a good choice. And I think they would be kind of based on what I think they're gonna go with as far as the direction. It'd be a fun little like Lethal Weapon, like almost duo with those two when they eventually meet up.
So I'll throw it over to you, JB3, because you haven't had a chance to speak on those three shows, but I'll also pose to you just kind of final overall thoughts on everything we heard and your feelings on the direction of DC going forward.
So continuing with Booster Gold, the last thing I'll say about that is, and I get it, I get what you guys saying about like Chris Pratt and everything, and I don't know much about the show, but from what it reads, it seems like there's some time travel involved, and I think that if there is time travel involved, I think it would be a really good opportunity for some cameos for the show at the time. I think, depending on where they go, it could be fun cameos. It could be, important cameos, like maybe some lead-ins, some seeds, planted seeds, if you will, kind of like Flash in Batman v Superman when he popped through the dream or whatever it was. Like certain things could happen. So there's a lot of cool things that could go with a show like that and bring in a comedic type effect. I mean, the I brought it up earlier, the cameo with Aquaman and Flash at the end of Peacemaker. That was hilarious. That was really funny, and I liked all that. When it comes to Supergirl, I'm excited for finally a hardened Supergirl, because it just makes sense. Like, it was one of the things that really upset me about Supergirl in the CW series, is that she was so like good and trying to be like, she was just so good, and I wanted to see a character that was hardened, and it makes sense. You grew up a completely different planet, a completely different philosophy of life, and then you go through a situation where you watch all these people close to you die and tragic events happen, and then you go to Earth, and everyone's used to Superman, everyone's used to his story, and everyone's used to how he got raised by the greatest family probably in their world, somehow magically just fell in the right spot on Earth, for it to be like the contrast there with Kara would just be like so much. It's so intriguing to me. Like, there's so many, like, if you talk about gray hats, that would be one of the grayest, I think. And as far as Swamp Thing goes, I mean, there's not much we know about that, but I agree with the sentiment that if James what's his name? James Mangold,
Yeah.
James
Mangold.
Mangold, yeah.
If he's doing that, then it'd probably be good because Logan was amazing. So I agree with that.
Mhm.
And then just final thoughts in general as we wrap up.
Final thoughts in general. I'm hopeful. I'm a little annoyed. I wasn't a fan of hearing everything, but that's coming from someone who watches the MCU faithfully, who has been a part of the whole story since back in 2008. So you're looking at something that works. You know, the longevity, the character build, the setting, the like all the different stories told, the sagas. You know it works. I know in my mind, I'm hoping, okay, they're thinking from 2025 to 2050. That's the thought process, but it kind of stinks that we've got to see Henry Cavill as Superman. We got to see Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, and even Ben Affleck as Batman. And we got to see, Aquaman and these characters, and we got to get to know these characters, and to love these characters a lot. Like, and just to see them, we're just gonna switch them out. Like, it's like I do get Matt's thing, like do a whole reboot, just everything. That's like, because if you're gonna do something like that, just do it. But it stinks to not be able to see Henry Cavill as Superman again. Like I was kind of excited to see a Black Adam versus Superman movie just for the fight. Like I don't. Black Adam was not. I haven't even watched it yet. I'm be honest. But like, I would have watched.
You're not missing much.
No,
Yeah.
exactly. That's kind of the point. I
Yeah.
mean,
I would have watched it. I would have watched that movie if it would have came out. So disappointed, but I'm hopeful.
Yeah, and like for me, I wanted Henry Cavill back, but my whole thing was if you're gonna get rid of Henry Cavill and Ben Affleck, just like Ben Affleck, I understand because if he wants to step away, you kind of gotta recast him. But if you're gonna get rid of Henry Cavill too, that's when I say just do a hard reset. If they were gonna keep everybody, I would have been fine with that if they would have kept everybody and maybe Flash does like a reset to where everybody still plays their characters, Henry Cavill, all these people, but they're different. It's essentially a new universe, but it's the same people. But if like I said, they were
Superman no longer wears underwear over his suit.
But if you're gonna replace Henry Cavill, that's when I'm like, just look, he's supposed to be the face of DC. If he's gonna be Superman. So if you're gonna recast him, just recast everybody. It'd be much easier for everybody. That's like the general audience to understand. They'll understand. Hey, it's a new Superman. It's a new Wonder Woman. This is obviously a new universe. But when you remove Henry Cavill, but you keep Jason Momoa as Aquaman and Gal Gadot and Ezra Miller, then people are like, well, okay, like they were with Henry Cavill. Where is he at? Where's why is a different guy playing Superman? That's my whole thing. It's just either continue, maybe change, maybe do a soft reboot as far as storyline, or just do a hard reset and just restart. That was my
Kevin, final thoughts?
Yeah, no, I can't argue with that about the hard reset. But I am excited about these new shows and new films that they are advertising. They're going in a different direction. It is like JB3 said, it's unfortunate that it's taken this long for DC to grasp the fact that, MCU figured it out a long ass time ago. But they are going to go that route. I'm super excited for shows like Creature Commandos, things that I haven't heard of before, and to get to learn that background of DCU the same way that I learned more about MCU the more they put out. So yeah, I'm actually excited about it, even though a lot of it is. Like I echo the thoughts of Matt and JB3, but but my excitement kind of outweighs the downside.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess to wrap up, I guess I'll take the opposite approach as somebody who wasn't a fan, unfortunately, of most of the films within the DCEU. I don't think I feel bad for anybody who's losing out on their role because of this reset, because I do think they're getting screwed. Because even in the bad films, the performances were never the problem with this universe. There
Right.
were a lot of other issues. But at the end of the day, 15 years ago, when DC had the Dark Knight trilogy booming, Marvel had the MCU beginning to boom. And DC took one look at that and said, we want that, and never stopped to think about how they should actually go about it.
Not
Because
at
when
all.
you look at the successive path of how things happened, it's like, oh, well, Nolan, you're doing Batman, write a Superman treatment. And he did. And they're like, and we'll put your Superman with our Batman. And Nolan was like, no, fuck off. And it's like, okay, well, now we need a new Batman. Hey, let's just put Batman and Superman together. And while we're at it, let's introduce Wonder Woman and the Flash. And we need an Aquaman and Cyborg. Sure, let's make him a Justice League member. Boom, we'll introduce him. And we'll nod to let's just do it all in one film. Let's just get it out of the way. But Guardians was a hit. We need one of those. Suicide Squad. Let's do that. And Wonder Woman needs an origin story. People like Thor. Let's do Wonder Woman. And their approach was very scattershot. It was very haphazard. They never once thought to how to build a universe. It was, how do we make money?
Yeah.
And I think not having a creative singular vision, bringing in a filmmaker who, and again, I feel bad. I don't like shitting on him because I know he has his fans. Zack Snyder is divisive. Just if you look at his entire career, his visual style, his approach to filmmaking, he is divisive. And I say that as somebody who likes some of his movies and doesn't like some of his movies. He's divisive. Right. Bringing in someone like that to establish your creative vision and where you're going without having an involved active producer behind him was a bad idea. Replacing Snyder with Jeff Johns initially, a comic book writer with no semblance of experience in the film industry, was another bad idea. Then finally you bring in Walter Hamada, but at that point the ship is so fucked that there's nothing that guy's going to be able to do to help any of this. To the point where by the time you finally started finding some success in your Aquamans, in your Shazams, in your other films like that, you're already too far gone to turn this whole thing into a success. And so I guess what I'm getting at is I feel bad for DC fans who did love those movies because you are losing this is well and truly now you're losing what you loved. And I feel bad for the actors who got screwed out of a potentially great opportunity because they got involved at the wrong time. I mean, again, I like Henry Cavill. I do feel bad that this happened to him person to person. But at the end of the day, DC has what they never had before, which is creative leadership. And not just that, they have a mix of a really creative comic book lover and filmmaker in James Gunn, mixed with Peter Safran, who is, say what you will about the quality of the films in the franchise, but The Conjuring is one of the most successful franchises of the 2010s in terms of world building, in terms of the consistency of output of film up until the pandemic. It is one of the most successful, and he is the mind behind that as a producer, with James Wan being the director and the creative in that sense. So I think this is a good pairing to take charge. And even though I question some of the choices that they make, why are we, we already have Suicide Squad and Peacemaker. Why are we doing Creature Commandos? That's just another one of those. Or, what does the Authority bring to this? Or how does Swamp Thing fit in with everything else tonally? Because it's so out there. The fact that they have a creative writer, the fact that they have a team, the fact that they have a vision at the start of all of this is what they've needed since day one. So even though I feel bad for the people who are losing out, and I agree, I don't love the half-half approach of let's reboot some of it, but maybe not all of it, whatever. It feels like it's very much being left to James Gunn's discretion of keep what you like, keep the toys you like, we'll throw out the rest, whatever. I think that at the end of the day, it'll be for the best because at the very least, what we're getting is a unified vision. Now, that said, Gunn, don't fuck up that Superman film. Otherwise, franchise and universe. You remember that a few years ago? This could go that direction if that movie doesn't make money. So don't fuck it up. But I think DC finally has what they've always wanted. Took them way too long to get there, but they have it. I think people should, put their Snyder boners away. If you're that type of person, put it away, put it down, and give them a chance to impress you. Because at the end of the day, like when you watch that video that was put out, the presentation, obviously it's been edited from what was shown to the press at that event, the full scope of it. What I saw is somebody who genuinely enjoyed getting to talk about the characters and like what he was working on. Like he actually seemed excited that he's like, oh, I'm writing a Superman script. I'll take that over anything else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I guess that's where we'll draw the line. So guys, I want to thank each and every one of you for being here. And before we close out, I was wondering if you would join me because when I was first putting this together, I thought up of a very stupid stunt.
Okay.
Because this is officially the death of the DCEU as we know it, giving a salute to all the projects that were announced that never came to fruition for one reason or another. And then I realized that there are about 35 of those. So join me, if you will, pour one out, raise a salute for every project that was ever announced by the DCEU that never got made, starting with Batgirl, Batman Beyond, Ben Affleck's The Batman, Black Adam 2, Black Canary, Black Manta, Crisis on Infinite Earths, Cyborg, Deadshot, Deathstroke, The Flash 2, Gotham City Sirens, Green Lantern, all of them, Harley Quinn versus the Joker, Our Man, John Constantine, Joker, but with Jared Leto, Justice League Dark, Justice League Part 2, Justice League Part 3, Krypton, Lobo, Madame Xanadu, Man of Steel 2, The Metal Man, New Gods, Nightwing, Patty Jenkins' Wonder Woman 3, Plastic Man, Static Shock, Val Zod, The Wonder Twins, and Zatanna. Rest in peace to everyone who ever wasted their time working with DC prior to this year.
You will not be missed.
Tough break.
And with that, guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap up what was a supersized first show. I want to say a shout out to Malcolm for being here. Shout out to JB3 and Kevin as well, guys. Be sure to tune in and support their stuff. JB3 just relaunched his Trivia League, so go over to his channel. What is the name of that, JB3?
Lights Out Trivia.
Go ahead, look that up. Give him the support. Kevin, of course, runs TM Geek over on our sister channel. Tune in and check that out as matches are actively going up. Matt Beer, you have your own endeavors. Go ahead and plug those real quick if you'd like.
I have quite a bit. So I've Inside the Horseshoe. I took a break for a little bit doing that. But now I got back to uploading a video. I think it hit 1.1 or 1.2 thousand yesterday, which is pretty cool for 1.1 for a day. Pretty cool. I did that, and then also I have a channel where I just upload my movie reviews and stuff now because I figured, this would be best for Battleground and this show. So it's called Grab the Remote. I have most of my Sundance reviews on there. Yep, just like JB. I have most of my Sundance reviews. So you can check me out there. Like I have Fair Play. I have a review for that on there. Run Rabbit Run was my most recent. And I'll probably upload one tomorrow for Knock at the Cabin when I go see that tomorrow. So that's what I've been doing.
Yeah. And make sure if you're not using your computer and you're using your TV like some people do, when the show comes on, make sure you grab your remote.
There you go.
Right. True that.
That's true.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. And as of course, this is this has been the first episode of Battleground Casual. As we go along, the show will look a little more professional. I have someone working on graphics and things for the show to sort of bring it together. But it's casual, right? Let's just launch with a bare bone show the first week and see what happens. But I'd be remiss if I didn't tie in our sister show. Go ahead and check out the first match of the season that launched yesterday. Again, Zachary Shelton versus Papa West. Tune in and check that out. And this week, continuing our launch week, we have 3 great matches going up on Monday. We have Tyler Birch taking on Ryan Payne. Both players return after a bit of a sabbatical at the end of last year. We have Jeremy Potters making his Battleground debut against Ross Bristow, also making his debut. That'll be on Wednesday. And then on Friday, we have Medee Raymond taking on Andy Sweet in a matchup that could mean big things for the winner. That, again, is on Friday. All matches go up at 5 p.m. EST. And we'll see you guys next week, same time, on Saturday for this show. Take care, everyone. Thank you.